Hemingway claimed that he rewrote the ending of his novel A Farewell to Arms 39 times before he was satisfied. Surviving manuscripts show he wasn't exaggerating. Hemingway was famous for the painstaking craftsmanship of his fiction, but his letter writing was spontaneous and informal. He scorned the advice of the English writer Ford Madox Ford, who advised him that a man should always write a letter thinking of how it would read to posterity. Hemingway countered that letters should be written not for posterity, but for the day and the hour, and posterity will always look after herself. A list of Hemingway's correspondence reads like a 20th century who's who. Ezra Pound, Gertrude Stein, F. Scott Fitzgerald, John Dos Passos, Archibald MacLeish, Maxwell Perkins, Gary Cooper, Ingrid Bergman, and Marlene Dietrich, to name just a few of the most famous ones. He also corresponded copiously with his family, including his 5 siblings, 4 wives, and 3 sons, and with friends around the world. And he responded generously to letters from scholars, students, and strangers. His surviving letters are directed to 1,900 recipients. Doubtless, there were many more who didn't keep their mail. I'm honored to have been named general editor of the Hemingway Letters Project and put in charge of a long-term effort to collect and publish a scholarly edition of the author's letters. At first, we expected this would run to a dozen volumes. We're now projecting 17 volumes to hold his some 6,000 located surviving letters, about 80% of them never before published. Our first challenge was simply to locate the letters. Hemingway didn't routinely keep copies, so this has required much detective work. To date, we've gathered copies of letters from some 250 sources in the United States and abroad, including more than 70 libraries and institutional archives, as well as dealers, private collectors, and even some individuals who corresponded with Hemingway themselves. Hemingway's letters present fresh and immediate accounts of events and relationships that profoundly shaped his life and art. As an 18-year-old Red Cross ambulance driver in World War I, he wrote home on a picture postcard from Italy on June 9, 1918, saying, "I go to the front tomorrow." Less than a month later, he'd be seriously wounded in a mortar explosion and hospitalized in Milan, where he would fall in love with his nurse. These were experiences that fueled his fiction, particularly his 1929 novel, A Farewell to Arms. Hemingway's letters chart the ebb and flow of his friendships with other writers. After meeting F. Scott Fitzgerald in Paris in 1925, he had been grateful and eager for advice from the older and already successful writer, and he followed Fitzgerald's suggestions for revising his own 1926 novel, The Sun Also Rises. But by 1929, the tables had turned. After the success of The Great Gatsby in 1925, Fitzgerald was unable to finish his next novel for 9 more years. Hemingway's deep concern for his friend is evident in his letter to Fitzgerald of September 13, 1929. "Everyone loses all the bloom," he wrote. "We're not peaches. That doesn't mean you get rotten. A gun is better worn and with the bloom off. So is a saddle. People too, by God. You lose everything that is fresh and everything that is easy, and it always seems as though you could never write. You just have to go on when it is worst and most hopeless. There's only one thing to do with a novel, and that is go straight on through to the end of the damn thing." The monumental and lasting value of Hemingway's published work is indisputable. Yet the letters are enormously valuable too for their revelation of the everyday Hemingway. As the writer James Atlas observed, biographers must brutally select events that serve chronology, but letters, with their absorption in the trivial, their incessant specificity, show us what life was like on those days when nothing happened. Yet Hemingway did not view his correspondence as art, and he regarded it lightly. He did not recognize the letter as one of his own richest and strongest genres. Hemingway didn't keep a journal, but his letters are a vivid and spontaneous real-time record of his life and times. His letters capture in the freshness of the moment the people and the places and how the weather was. Taken together, they constitute the raw footage of an epic life story and an eyewitness chronicle of the 20th century.